Alright guys, such coming again today. Hope you're doing good and enjoying your day so far. Major roster developments last night with Ghosty officially confirming he's a restricted free agent from the Los Angeles Thieves. They are blowing it up despite initial rumours a week or so ago they were going to make no changes after their top 8 back-to-back results at the end of the season. That leaves them needing a replacement. Is Cellium the target? That is the big rumour that Thieves are going to make that swap, but is it the right move or even the wrong player getting replaced? Lots of discussion around whether Envoy could also be on the chopping block, with JoeDeceives potentially gettable off Toronto if they've got the money to do so. Lots of reaction to this change and what it means for this next stage of Rostermania. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Congrats to MajorManiak on a great pro career. He was around, I mean, like one of the OGs, right? Been around a very long time. Had some great success, certainly on the FaZe team, on Rocker famously. They made that amazing comeback in the grand finals 4-0 against Toronto. His stints on Florida and other teams, you know, he had a bit of a stint to forget last year on Boston, but we won't talk about that. So, you know, great career for MajorManiak. I know that many, including myself, remember the Gen G days, really, from Black Ops 4 and the great season that was. So, wishing him the best in the future. Probably would be a really good coach somewhere as well, if that's what he decides to do. But he's officially retired from competitive Call of Duty. We know that MajorManiak is, you know, definitely a name in the scene, right? Because partly because of Dashy and Formal and them giving his mindset lots of credit. You know, it's never chalked, right? That's the whole MajorManiak thing. And, well, unfortunately, his career is now chalked. So, you know, wishing him the best in his next adventures. But let's dive straight into it, right? Los Angeles Thieves, they will be making a change. Ghosty did these couple of tweets back at the end of July, suggesting that Thieves would be looking to stick it out for the new season. At the time, that was, it seems, what the players wanted to do. So Ghosty maybe he's got a source in the player camp somewhere, I don't know. And the players wanted to stick it out. That is our understanding at the time. But as time has gone on, that has now changed. Maybe because the ownership, the management, or whoever has made the decision they want to move on from Ghosty, or because the players themselves, and when I say the players, I mean Scrap and HyDra, basically, are open to these type of discussions now, in the same way maybe that when Shotzzy was effectively told by Hex, hey, we're dropping skies for Mercules, Shotzzy was not exactly on board with that, right? He wanted to keep the team together at the time, but when they were like, well, we are probably going to do this, like, we're very much considering it, then Shotzzy was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, fair enough. I'm open to it. Let's see how it goes. Possibly a similar situation here with Scrap and HyDra, maybe wanting to keep Ghosty initially, but after some pressure from some of the management, maybe they've now come to the realization that there could be a brighter future somewhere else. But what would that future look like and who's it going to be instead? But Ghosty officially confirms it yesterday, restricted free agent for the 2026 season. It's been a tough year for Ghosty, the last 2 events anyway, because the majority of the year was pretty damn good. Yeah, there's talk about his delivery in grand finals, but he did get over the line this year and finally won a couple of events. I think he was honestly really useful. Like, useful isn't exactly the right word, but he played his role very well on Thieves. The reality is, when you place top 8 at the back-to-back biggest tournaments of the year, you know, something is going to probably have to give at that point. Is getting rid of Ghosty a good idea? Well, there's a few ways to look at it. Ghosty has lots of excellent attributes as a player. Were there any issues outside of the game like there was on OpTic back in the day when he first joined that team? We don't know about that, and maybe not. But his comms are no doubt excellent and were probably a crucial factor for why Thieves had some good success this year. But did he deliver? And Envoy also didn't deliver, let's be real, at the final 2 big events of the season. And as a result, at least one of them is going to be on the chopping block. Now, if you are going to get rid of Ghosty, especially because they've now officially made this decision, right? Like, when Ghosty's an RFA, he's not coming back. When a player is announced as restricted free agents, it is very rare that they return to the team. Sometimes if they're unrestricted, if their contract is just over, then they might get re-signed. But when they're restricted, this means they are under contract. The team has told them we are no longer interested. So, you know, very, very rarely would that reverse, basically. And Ghosty will be on another team next year, assuming that he gets bought out by somebody, which, and maybe there aren't. There's so many free agents out there. Which team is going to go and buy Ghosty? It's a very good question right now. We'll get into that in the coming minutes. But the real question, first of all, is this the right move for Thieves? And why have they come to this conclusion? Look, I know that Lion Man cards aren't the be-all and the end-all, but if you look at Ghosty's cards this year, yes, a lot of that is boosted by his excellent objective stats, which is also boosted to some degree by the fact that Scrap and HyDra do not play the objective. But did Ghosty do his role very well for the vast majority of this season? I would say the answer is unequivocally yes. He brought the comms, and his stats in terms of his hill time and ticks per rounds were basically purple across the board, and that was true of Ghosty and it was true of Envoy. Ghosty had the most hill time in the league by quite some margin this season, and that in some sense is no surprise. He was playing with Thieves, but equally he did what he needed to do and what the team needed him to do. Is getting Cellium or somebody else going to be an upgrade? Okay, sure, in some respects, yes, but also it has risk. I think if you are going to replace Ghosty with anyone, there's going to be a level of risk there to making that decision. Now, if you could replace Ghosty with Drazah, I think I would probably do it. I think Drazah's probably just a little bit better in some aspects, but there's still some level of risk. Replacing him with Cellium, that's when things get real tasty, because they're just very different players, right? They're very, very different players, and that could be an upside, or of course it could also be a downside as well. Now, before we talk about what it means for Thieves and Cellium and that whole conversation and some of the reaction to it, where might Ghosty go? What are the options on the market for Ghosty's next steps? Because he finally got a couple of event wins this year. Still think he's a very valuable player. So there are some options out there. Now, K-Sun was doing a couple of tweets. He was talking about, he knows what he wants to do at FaZe. He talks to the players. He talks to the owners. He's got some ideas for the future. And then FaZe tweeted this out with Crowder putting the glasses on, presumably suggesting, or maybe taking them off, I don't know, whatever. Like, I'm guessing he's taking them off, looking close at this situation, and maybe Ghosty's an option, because if you're FaZe, you're looking at maybe getting Rancor in. And look, if FaZe do have the money to buy Rancor out of his contract, there have been some rumours floating around as to what that would be. There were some rumours last night that Heretics want 100k to buy Rancor out of the contract. easyMax said on our Dope Check show last night that whenever you see a buyout number, cut it in half, and that's usually what it ends up being in terms of what they actually agree on. So maybe Rancor's gettable by FaZe, and if you get Rancor as your slaying AR, Ghosty would be a pretty good counterpart to that, I would say. But also I could see maybe Ghosty could go to a team like potentially Falcons, not impossible, but it would require a buyout. That's the thing. He's under contract. Somebody is going to have to pay money for Ghosty. Who's it going to be? FaZe, I mean, I'm sure that Simp would think about it, right? What that would potentially be. I think that Simp would maybe like to be in an environment where there's some better communication going on the team, and Ghosty would have, a bit of a revenge arc as well to try and execute on. Be pretty exciting going to the FaZe team. That's something that's an option. As I say, Falcons is always an option for everyone, but, maybe surprisingly, they've not been thrown around too much in these conversations as I might have expected them to. And that's what Parasite says. Ghosty on FaZe would help their hardpoint issues and solid comms, just saying. And Benjay says, potentially, but I don't think that's where he's going to end up. So, yeah, what do you think Benjay's getting at here? He reckons that he's not going to be on FaZe based on either things he's heard or said or whatever, and he's going to end up on some other team instead. So that's the Ghosty side of the discussion. I'll share a couple of clips here in a second. Well, actually, this one really skumped just seeing this unfold in real time and kind of discussing, wow, pretty big deal, and what does that mean for his potential replacement on Thieves?
There it is.
There goes Ghosty.
Daniel.
Another one bites the dust.
Restricted.
Oh,
Wait.
man.
Restricted. Wait, so they're getting Cellium. Holy shit.
Restricted.
And here we go.
A domino has fallen, Tom. A domino has fallen.
It's happening.
What's going on here? What is going on
New
here?
AR heading to Thieves. Who will it be? You have Cellium rumored.
Abuzah. It might be Abuzah.
Hey,
No,
Abuzah.
it could be
Abuzah's a
Cellium,
cow.
Tom.
Huh?
It could be MC, Tom.
Could be MC.
It could be MC. It could be MC.
Yeah.
It very well could be MC. It could be him.
All right, well, that was kind of known though, right? That was the rumor.
That was expected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it was
was
expected.
I'm gonna be honest. I think Dan even knew. I think he tweeted this fucking 3 days late. I think he knew.
Well, nah, they're gonna. The team has to tell him.
So when the rumours were first coming out that Ghosty was going to be gone off the team, there were three names thrown around. One was Drazah, to my understanding, they reached out to Drazah, and Drazah basically laughed about the door. So I'm playing with Scrap. So, okay, fair enough. That's a conversation that we've had before. Maybe we'll have that again, and whether that's a good idea or not. Two other options, really, because if you are going to get rid of Ghosty, you've got to find someone who is considered or could be considered an upgrade. And it's not easy to find players that are not on OpTic, right? So obviously you can't get those guys that could be considered an upgrade. There are two, maybe. Abuzah is one. In my opinion, I'm not sure that is an upgrade. I think it could be kind of lateral. I rate Abuzah pretty highly, but I also rate Ghosty. So I don't, unless you're making change for change's sake, like you just needed a change, or there's some sort of outside of the game thing, I don't see getting Abuzah for Ghosty being like a clear slam dunk exactly. Cellium, however, definitely has some attributes that make him more competent than Ghosty, right? I mean, Cellium's gun skill is undeniable. Him and Scrap as an AR duo, I mean, I can't imagine the Lion Man cards they're going to be coming out with, right? Like, it's going to be, the KDs are going to be stunning. But as we know, there's only so many kills to go around. But a trio of Scrap, Cell, and HyDra, that is unbelievable slaying power on a single lineup on paper. And look, could Cell play the role that he wants to play with Scrap being a faster AR in front of him? Or would they make Cellium play a bit faster? Could they even try and put Cell on the flex? And, I think with Cellium, he's a very exciting player to sign if I was a coach, because Cellium's been playing under Crowder's coaching on FaZe for like his whole career. And there's a feeling for many in the community that they think that Cellium could be more impactful if he played in a different way. We've occasionally seen that back in Modern Warfare 19, and also last year's Esports World Cup, he played faster and still dropped to 1.4. So the ability there is unquestionable. And if I'm Cinder and Shane, or whoever's going to be coaching that team going forwards, because maybe they'll make a change there, but who knows? Let's just say Cinder in this scenario. I'm loving the opportunity to get Cellium, get my hands on Cell, because I've been watching FaZe for years, probably as a coach, and thinking, damn, if I had Cell, I'd make him into, a more effective player. If I was a coach, I think that's the way that I would think, and that's maybe why it's attractive, right? Because you think, all right, I bring in Cell, he's a bit, comms aren't great, playstyle maybe isn't great, but the talent is so high that maybe they can, make Cellium into an even more deadly version of the player that he has been for the last few years. So I definitely see the appeal there. But also, as I say, there is risk. His comms are notoriously bad, or difficult to understand, or whatever. There's clearly a lot of work that needs to be done there. And how's the playstyle going to mesh with Scrap and HyDra? When you've got that much slaying power already, do you need a Cellium? It's a good question. Or do you need someone who's going to sit in the hill? And maybe Cellium can do that for the team, and he can be the hill kitten, but he's never going to do it probably to quite the same extent that Ghosty did. So there's loads of interesting debates about this. Ronnie, though, quote tweets this, drops the eyes emoji, and basically implies, yeah, this is happening, and it's probably happening very soon. The other thing, of course, that we've got to mention before we close things out here, and I know that this is probably a bait tweet here from JoeDeceives in the replies, is what does it mean for Envoy? Is Envoy going to stay as well? We were doing the Dope Check show last night. I put a poll out there for you guys watching live, and I said, all right, who do you drop if you're Thieves? Do you drop Ghosty? Do you drop Envoy? Do you drop both? Ghosty actually got the least votes in that poll. Envoy had more, which I don't think is really fair. But then both had the most votes of anyone. Maybe you guys just want to see chaos. But the point I'm trying to make is a one-man change for Thieves enough? Is Envoy the right man to partner that unbelievable trio? I think quite possibly he is, actually. But it's not like there aren't other options as well. If you are going to sell Ghosty, you might, you'd get some money for Ghosty from someone, you would think. And, you can get Cellium for free because he's an unrestricted free agent and he wants to join your team. So maybe that gives you a bit of money to go to Toronto and say, hey, we want JoeDeceives. Maybe that's not impossible. I know there's also been talk about aBeZy. Could you get him as well? aBeZy, HyDra, Scrap, and Cell. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that is a super team of stacked talent, but I like the role that Envoy is going to need to play on this team. I like Envoy in that role, on the role that Envoy is going to need to play. I'm not sure I like aBeZy in that role so much. I'm not sure I like Neptune in that role so much. I think JoeDeceives, I can see it as well. But CleanX, I don't know, right? I mean, also it would be Scrap admitting a mistake, bringing CleanX in now after bringing Envoy over last year. Not to say that they couldn't do that, but it's just not how human beings tend to like to behave. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section, right? Even more so than usual on what Thieves should consider doing. Of course, in hindsight, maybe there's a world where Drazah looks back on this in the coming years and says, maybe I should have just squashed the beef then. Look, I understand why he wouldn't do it, doesn't want to do it, and I think it's better for the community that he doesn't. But, yeah, Drazah was definitely an option here, I think, for Thieves. Scrap was maybe down to see if it could go well, but, yeah, Drazah was not so keen, and as a result, we find ourselves where we are today, that it's likely going to be Cellium instead to the LA Thieves. Will they pull the trigger on the Envoy thing is a question, because, you know, obviously, as we have seen, we've got Ghosty tweeting RFA, and there was an article that Ronnie put out that says that Thieves are definitely interested in JoeDeceives if the money is right to buy him out of Toronto, which obviously implies that they are far from set on the Envoy as the perfect fourth man to that quartet. So very much into your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.